Hello my Whoop friends. This video is about the topic of analog or digital Tinywhoop FPV cameras. Many of you are probably familiar with the problem that the Whoop camera suddenly stops working after a hard crash, even though the camera looks undamaged from the outside at first glance. So that this doesn't happen to you again, I'll show you in this video my method with which you can prevent your camera from breaking. There are of course various reasons why a camera can break. I'll come back to this later in the video. If you are new to this channel, please also check out my other videos and tutorials. I have put a lot of work into some of them and would be happy if many people see the videos and get help. Because I don't have many videos of new products on my channel like other channels, I rely on your support in the form of likes, subscriptions and comments, my friends. In this way, my videos are still appreciated by the YouTube algorithm. And so I can continue to offer you independent advice from my extensive Whoop race experience as well as my many years of model flying experience with 3D RC helicopters, scale RC helicopters and RC aerobatic airplanes and more. You can see part of it on my second German language YouTube channel. Thank you in advance, my Whoop friends. A Whoop camera can break in many ways. For example, a cable can break, or the lens may break or scratch. There are solutions for these problems too. This video is just about protecting the cameras from high G-forces in hard crashes. The reason why a camera no longer works after a hard crash is often because a component on the circuit board has come loose due to the high G-force peak during the impact. Often it is a larger component, but sometimes it is a small one that is almost invisible. To prevent this, I coat the circuit board of my new camera with a contact adhesive such as UHU-POR or E6000. But you can also use other glues that have similar properties. It is important that the glue leaves a thin rubbery layer on the board after it dries. This thin rubbery layer helps hold the components in place. Modified in this way, your camera is then almost indestructible by G-forces. Of course, as I said, there are other reasons why a camera no longer works. For example, if you scratch the lens. This used to happen to me a lot when I was also an FPV beginner. For better lens protection, only canopies where the lens is moved a little inwards help. So in the event of a crash, the canopy makes contact with the obstacle first and not the lens. The second thing that also happens is broken cables or, more rarely, loose contacts in the cable. You can also prevent broken cables by coating the transition between the soldering point and the cable with UHU-POR or E6000 adhesive. It is important that you also coat about 3 to 5 millimeters of the cable. Many manufacturers only cover the soldering point, which is of no use at all. If you use the camera without a plug, you will of course also have to secure the cables to the FC with glue. Or you can use my half-plug technique. With this technique I only cut off the front half of the camera connector using a sharp electronic side cutter, so that I can pull the cables with the crimped metal parts out of half the connector housing. And I then solder these crimped metal parts to the flight controller. By the way, this also works with motor cables. I'll make a video about it at some point. Unfortunately, what can also happen is that the lens housing breaks off at the transition to the circuit board on some cameras. Of course, it helps if you stick the lens housing even better yourself. For example with epoxy glue. The method here in the video also helps prevent this a little. Or it could be that your camera suddenly lets light from behind onto the sensor and you suddenly see the traces in the image. It helps to coat the back of the camera with opaque black glue. As you can see, there is a lot that can happen. But if you take a little precaution like with the glue method here in the video, then you can save yourself a lot of problems and build a more reliable Whoop that will work for longer. And you can save yourself a lot of defective cameras and therefore a lot of money, which you can then invest in other material. But of course your Whoop is never really indestructible, and the faster you learn to fly better and with more concentration and to crash less or crash differently, the better it is. By the way, I made a whole video about how you can learn to crash differently and crash less with the right mindset. Link to the video is in the video description along with other information. If you have listened to this point and liked the video or what you learned from it, then I would like to thank you very much and hope you will let me know in the form of a comment, a like or a subscription. And now I wish you a lot of fun building and flying the Whoop. Happy flying my friends.
You gotta put your past behind you. Look, kid. Bad things happen, and you can't do anything about it, right?
Right.
Wrong! When the world turns its back on you, you turn your back on the world.
Well, that's not what I was told.
Then maybe you need a new lesson. Repeat after me.
video is the Meteor 75 Pro from Beta FPV, but not in the stock version, in my Butterfly FPV version with some modifications. For example, some holes in the canopy as well as in the frame to make it lighter. Direct soldered motor cables to the board without motor plugs. AWG20 main cable. BT 2.0 main connector. Titanium motor screws. And Tinywhoop pinch cam, as well as an OVX 300 VTX from Happy Model. And that's about it. I do have some videos about those modifications and some other videos on my channel. Please check them out.